Silver Institute put out its World Silver Survey a few weeks back. Demand for silver is certainly not letting down. It's expected to be 1.2 billion ounces this year, just slightly below the all-time record of 2022, clearly being very, very strongly led by solar. Right now, it's about 20% of all the silver supplied every year goes to solar alone, the single largest application for silver. They expect that within the next 3 years, it could reach 35%.
Starting from mid-2020 and lasting until very recently, gold exhibited a perplexing lack of direction, much to the frustration and confusion of even the most dedicated gold bugs. While gold initially thrived during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, buoyed by the unprecedented liquidity injections from central banks worldwide, it subsequently bounced around a narrow range of $1,600 to $2,100. However, this trend was disrupted on March 4th when the precious metal finally broke out of this trading range. According to Peter Krauth, a 20-year veteran in the resource market and a trusted authority in the field, the recent breakout in gold and silver prices heralds the potential for significant gains, with many more powerful breakouts to come. On May 11th, Peter delivered an engaging and informative address at the Metals Investor Forum titled, "Silver Breakout, Are You Positioned?" He begins by highlighting important macro developments, which he believes are leading us to a particularly explosive phase for silver prices. The first development is, of course, rapidly rising global debt levels. The United States, for instance, is adding $1 trillion every 100 days. That's over $3 trillion added in a year. The story is the same elsewhere, which is why the global debt-to-GDP ratio is currently over 315%. Overall, worldwide growth has been slowing, largely influenced by higher rates. Additionally, the world is still facing the risk of a major banking crisis or even a sovereign debt crisis. According to the CFR Sovereign Risk Tracker, at least 10 countries are currently considered high risk, meaning they have a 50% or higher chance of defaulting within the next 5 years. The Council on Foreign Relations already officially considers countries like Russia, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Ukraine, Venezuela, and Egypt in default. During his address, Krauth emphasizes that these gloomy signs will only strengthen the demand for tangible assets like gold and silver, leading to potentially significant price gains for both metals. We will present clips from Krauth's address, but before we do, please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. Thanks for the support, and enjoy the video.
So we're in a gold bull market. We know that Jordan talked about that. He made it unequivocal. There are other indicators as well. If you look at gold in multiple currencies, the major currencies around the world, when you see gold hitting new all-time highs in major currencies, you can be quite sure that we are at the start of a new secular bull market. This shows that 6 different currencies where gold has completely broken out. So now let's talk about silver. There's been a clear breakout, technical breakout. If you draw a line from this is not inflation adjusted, obviously, but the 1980 high all the way down to recent levels, silver has clearly broken out from that downward trend line. And if you look just in the last 3 to 4 years, it's been pushing up lately against the $28 to $30 level. It hit that for the first time in mid-2020 in the COVID pandemic. It did that again in early 2021 when we had the silver squeeze. We're pushing up against those levels again now, and that hopefully the third time is the charm. I think that once we get across the $28 to say $30 level, certainly round numbers are psychologically important. I think once we get above 30, that's going to become very quickly a new floor in the silver price, and certainly very, very helpful to miners and explorers' bottom line. So a little bit of market supply-demand fundamentals. Let's get into that. Silver Institute put out its World Silver Survey a few weeks back. Demand for silver is certainly not letting down. It's expected to be 1.2 billion ounces this year, just slightly below the all-time record of 2022, clearly being very, very strongly led by solar. I'll talk about the rate of growth in solar demand in a few more slides, but it's just been off the charts. This is from Bank of America Global Research. they forecast that demand, right now it's about 20% of all the silver supplied every year goes to solar alone, the single largest application for silver. They expect that within the next 3 years, it could reach 35% of all silver supply will actually go to just this one application. And there's a lot of talk, obviously, about China. China controls about 80%, perhaps more, of the world's global manufacturing capacity in solar panels. But India is starting to catch up and really becoming an important market. This shows the growth in India in solar panel manufacturing. Their capacity is expected to triple between 2023 and 2027. Really, really aggressive growth. And here's an interesting, perhaps, reason for at least part of it. There was an announcement not long ago that they are building the world's largest renewable energy park in India. It's in Gujarat state. It's expected to be 5 times the size of Paris. So that's going to require a lot of silver, needless to say. And I think that we've started to see that silver flow into India. In February of this year, 71 million ounces in 1 month alone were imported into India. That represents 2/3 of all of their last year's imports. So chances are some of that's going to this new solar park. And given the growth that is expected in India, we're going to see a lot more of this.
Silver is an important part of the production of solar photovoltaic panels because it is highly conductive, has thermal efficiency, and is optically reflective. The world is going green, which means more silver will be needed to produce these panels. This is why experts are certain that the demand for silver from the makers of solar panels will increase by almost 170% by 2030 to roughly 273 million ounces, or 1/5 of the total silver demand. This is just one industrial application, and there are several others that are also contributing to significantly higher demand for the precious metal. The higher the demand for silver climbs, the higher the metal's price. Let's get back to Krauth's speech.
Most recent technology in solar panels is something called PERC. And that's actually being phased out. So now we've got something called TOPCon, which takes up to 50% more silver per panel. And Bank of America forecasts that by 2026, or is that, 2026, they think that it should be about 50% already of solar panels this year are going to have this new technology. And they forecast that by 2026, it's already going to represent 90%. So this takes more silver per panel. So the amount of silver, that's why I'm saying the thrifting is going to have to go into reverse. And the amount of silver going into each panel is going to start to trend upwards. Something that we don't talk about very much, for probably good reason, is that it's almost impossible to get numbers on silver requirements in defense applications. I want to give a little shout out to someone who does some great research in this field, Ryan Blanchette of the Metals Intelligence Desk. And he's looked at this. Again, you've got to make all kinds of assumptions, but the expectation is that one Tomahawk missile takes about 500 ounces of silver. There are all kinds of places within the missile, things like batteries, cells, relays, contact switches. By that estimate, it's probably about 600,000 ounces that are in Tomahawk missiles. Supplies of Tomahawks are now going to allied countries, so they're selling these missiles to others, producing them and selling them. More requirement for silver. Some of the missiles are being upgraded. Then, of course, when you use the missile, you're not recovering that silver. And so roughly, the estimate is that about 500,000 ounces of silver go into just Tomahawk missiles every year. We haven't even accounted for all of the other defense applications, communications, contacts, relays, you name it, communication. It's just everywhere. So again, none of that's reflected in silver consumption. Well, inflation has hit the industry as well. Total costs for silver production are actually up 61%, cash costs. All-in costs are up 25%. And so margins have shrunk by about 30% last year for primary silver miners. Reserves are down, so there's reserve depletion, not being replaced, not finding silver, not bringing it, not proving up the deposits, and then you have M&A that is at its lowest level since 2006. So, the Silver Survey expects that silver mine supply is going to be down again this year, and that's despite considerable growth in demand. Once again, this chart I had back in March, and I thought was worth repeating. I've updated it a little bit, but really hits home if you think about how silver forecast, a supply forecast, was expected to be up last year by 2%. It was actually down 1%. Industrial demand was expected to be up 5%. It was revised at 14%. Solar, here's the big one. Solar was forecast to grow by 28%. It grew 64% last year alone. And the supply deficit was supposed to be 142 million ounces. It actually turned out to be 184 million ounces. So the deficits are continuing. The forecasts are for deficits to continue well into the future. There were several charts where I looked at why the silver price looked like it was capped if there was so much demand and this structural deficit. And my theory was that the big industrial consumers were getting it somewhere, and that they were getting it probably from the futures markets that have inventories, from the ETFs that have inventories. And you can see those charts, those inventories have been dropping by about 40% in the last 3 years. Some of the registered inventories, which is actually what's available for delivery, have been dropping by 70%. So that's most likely where the silver has been coming from. So really, are you positioned for this silver breakout?
According to the Silver Institute, silver's supply deficit is expected to grow by 17% in 2024 to 215.3 million ounces. Industrial demand is also forecast to climb by 9% to a new record high as the world proceeds with the transition to green energy. The Institute reports that investor interest in silver has improved in the first quarter of this year due to optimism that the U.S. Federal Reserve will start cutting rates later this year. It added that a fall in real yields will favor investment in precious metals into the year's second half. Do you agree with Peter Krauth and the Silver Institute about silver prospects as an investment asset in 2024? Please drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Also, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notifications bell so you get notified every time we upload a video. We appreciate the support and see you in the next one.